Got it.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice. It's so nice to meet you both.
Same here.
On Zoom. All right, look, I'm going to show you something. Ready?
Wait, I can't see with these glasses. I can't see with them. I can't see without them.
Can you see the first slide?
You know what? Let me send you a better image. I'm gonna just take a screen grab from the internet. I think I could get something better. Yeah.
Is that better?
Let me check 1 sec. No, 1 second.
I'm
Leanna,
not so good at this. So if it's going to complicate life.
I'm gonna just take a screen grab. It's going to be easier. Can I send it through the chat or let me email it to you.
Email it
Send
to
it
me.
to Shirley.
Okay, sending it now.
Okay, I'm going to shut this one. I'm not great at having multiple screens open, so.
I feel like I look insane.
I think you look great. I feel like I look terrible.
No, you look great.
I've been taking care of little kids all day, so I'm a little frazzled.
Me too. My kid was sick, so I just didn't have a minute today.
Oh,
How about you?
yeah. Well, actually they weren't sick.
Yeah.
It's a 2-year-old and a 5.5-year-old. So
Yeah.
All
it's
right, ready?
I feel like I've heard about them. Yeah, ready.
You have just the baby, right?
Yeah, just one.
And how old is he?
He's 1.5.
Oh, great.
That's
this.
better.
So much
That's
better.
much better. Yeah. Should we look at the other ones and we'll see if they're
Yeah,
pixelated?
see if the Comet baby is good.
People are starting to come in.
Liana, is this your was that your first published cartoon? Or
Yeah.
had you had cartoons published anywhere else? That was.
Oh no, I'd made some things for Lilith magazine and for the Forward.
Hi, Carol.
That was the first in the New Yorker.
Yeah. Thanks for doing all this research. That is so kind of you.
Oh, well, but I had seen that documentary. That was what was so, and now that I see your face, I recognize you.
And those directors just made one about Judy Blume that's about to come out.
Oh, they did that one? Because that's gotten a lot of great advanced reviews.
I know, I'm so proud. They're really, really good.
And you know what, Shirley, Mark Oppenheimer, author of the Tree of Light, just got a contract to write Judy Blume's biography.
Really?
Yeah. Did you know that, Liana?
No, I read the article about all the Judy Blume stuff, but I didn't finish it. Was it in there?
It was at the very end. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get to the very end.
But
that's what happens when you don't read the whole thing through.
Yeah, I always thought I could get away with it.
Not essential. It's not coming out for a while, but we're in New Haven and he lives here and is a friend of my son and daughter-in-law. So he was here when we arrived and he told me that and I was so excited.
And he spoke at Nourish too. So
he's a previous at Nourish speaker.
Oh, that's so cool. He's in New Haven?
Yeah, he lives here. And his wife is, he used to teach writing at Yale. But now he's just writing on his own full time, which he's discovered doesn't pay anything. So now he's looking for a way to make money while writing full time.
Yeah, it's a weird system. It's falling apart. I just remembered that your kids go to that shul in New Haven that I really loved.
Becky. Oh, that you spoke there, right?
I spoke there and I felt like so happy in that group of people was so great.
Aren't they? I love that place. In fact, my dream is that Shomrei will pattern itself after them. And so far, so good. We're on our way.
Is Shomrei new?
No, Shomrei is very old.
Okay.
We have a new rabbi.
Yeah.
We're kind of, reinventing ourselves, right, Shirley? Right, Carol?
Yes, we are. We are definitely reinventing ourselves.
So Leanna, just to explain, the person who just came in actually is in the same house as me.
No, I'm not. No.
That is my spouse. We have
Hi.
our own quarters.
Hi.
Like the king and the queen, we have separate quarters.
Especially when you're on Zoom.
It's a secret to a very long and happy marriage.
Are you all in the
many-
same house? All of you?
No,
I'm not, I'm in New Haven.
I'm just kidding.
that would be really weird, wouldn't it? So,
Yeah.
David and I, the reason David's here, I think, is because last night when Dale gave me the job of doing the visual aids, I made him practice with me.
And he doesn't trust you, is that it? He wants to be here to make sure it all goes fine.
He's just being helpful. It's not that he's making sure, it's just that he's being helpful and a very helpful spouse. He's supporting his wife.
I
No,
love
actually,
that.
Oh my God, Carol, what planet are you on?
David, we know that you're all bark, not much bite.
Woof.
So we haven't had a Nat Nourish in a while. So I imagine people will wander in a little late. And I want to say it's because of the snow, except everybody is zooming in. So
I appreciate the fact that Nourish stayed on Zoom, because sometimes, like, I might or might not have gone out, but I like the idea. I'm happy to be off Zoom a lot, but I like at Nourish on Zoom. Just makes it easier. But it's interesting. John sent out 2 notices today about it.
I know, he told me that. I thought I saw them, but it's like,
Yeah.
really?
I thought they were cutting back on how often they,
My
just
buddy.
depends.
Kidding. Well, we never start on time.
We
So,
still have 3 minutes, we're still before 8 o'clock.
yeah, no, I know, we're early. So Leanna, the first time Dale and I talked about this, I think it was with your mom. She's your publicist.
I know.
She said that you have to call her after she has the baby.
Yeah, and when did the book come out before the baby came out?
No, the book came out when he was 6 months old, and I was surprised by how hard it was to do publicity, even like it wasn't that soon after.
6 months is pretty soon.
It was pretty soon. I was not, also in the pandemic, I hadn't been socialized yet.
Okay. So did you do mostly a virtual book tour, or did you actually travel to lots of real places?
I didn't travel anywhere, but I guess I did a few travel things on Zoom and a few things in New York and a few interviews. Like one of the interviews, I just forgot that I was doing it, and I was like outside walking the dog with the baby strapped to me, and I don't think that one got published. That was I feel really bad. I don't even want to Google to see if it got published, because I have a feeling it didn't.
Sometimes you're better off not knowing something.
Yeah.
What kind of dog do you have?
She's not here. She's her DNA test came back somewhat pit bull. She looks like less pit bull than it said she is, but she looks a little pit bull and like just kind of a generic, like athletic black dog with like a white spot. Do you all have dogs or cats?
I have a dog.
Hi,
What's
Susan.
I have a dog named Junior, who's a
good-
rescue, and he's 10 and a half. And he is also a generic black dog.
Yeah,
He's from the South. He's from rural Georgia.
yeah. My dog's from
Oh.
Texas. What's he? Maybe they're similar.
Probably. And
Right.
we think he's many kinds of hound. I don't know if he's pit bull. He could be. He's very, very strong and has a very strong chest.
I'll show you a picture of my dog.
Oh,
Aw.
that does look like Junior, doesn't it, Shirley?
Yeah.
Shirley knows Junior, and so does David.
Yes, Junior comes to visit occasionally.
Yeah,
The 8 o'clock crowd is
Junior
coming in.
is rambunctious.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a nice
is.
way of, that's a nice description.
for a
That's a good
10-year-old.
way of putting it, David.
Penny's rambunctious when she's nervous, which is a lot.
Oh,
She jumps like a pogo stick. She'll like jump and kind of nibble on someone's nose,
Hmm.
which is pretty terrifying.
here's Junior now. He's gray because he's 10 and a half.
Oh, he
Mm.
looks big. Is he really big?
He weighs 65.
Oh, yeah, medium.
Strong. Hello, Geraldine. It's good to see
He's a
you.
big boy. Hi, Geraldine. So here's our rabbi. This is
Hi.
Rabbi Julie, and this is
Nice to
Liana
meet
Fink.
you. I've heard a lot about you. Welcome to Montclair.
Thank you. Where do you live?
I live in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
Worse.
Yeah.
You know, I especially invited your parents, Liana, so we could thank them. And
They
they're
said-
on the road somewhere and they didn't think they could.
They
Oh,
wanted
wow.
to. They said they would try. They're in Mexico. It might be hard.
Oh, wow.
I
thought
hope they're okay.
I do too.
It's scary.
Yeah. I will feel sad if they got kidnapped.
Well, our future daughter-in-law just returned from her bachelorette party in Tulum, Mexico, and they had a spectacular time.
That's good. I
Very
think
safe.
it's
Very safe.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
Where are your parents?
Oh, they're in Mexico City. They're like looking at a lot of architecture. There's one architect I'm embarrassed I hadn't heard of who is modernist, and they're sending these pictures. I'm trying to remember his name. It started with a B of these amazing houses that they're sneaking into. And they saw those pyramids.
Oh, wow.
It's their first like fun trip since the pandemic started.
Mm. I'm glad they could do it. I'm sorry it's now, though. Too bad they're missing you. But it's being recorded, so.
Yeah, I told them. So, Liana, we normally wait until 8:05 to kick off because that seems to be the right time. So we're getting close.
Okay.
And people are coming in, cleaning the snow off their boots.
How much snow do you have?
Not much.
It wasn't bad out today. It looked worse before, but we lucked out.
Yeah. Is it
We don't have
are you
any.
on the ground?
It's sticking to the grass, but not to the pavement. So maybe that's why
Yeah.
you're not seeing much in Brooklyn.
Yeah, we have like a little less than that, I think. It's been snowing all day, but it's not sticking.
I have a feeling we're still somewhere between now and the end of Passover. We're gonna get one humongous storm.
Are you usually right when you predict snow?
I don't know, but I do know when Easter is the end of March, we get a heavy snowstorm at Easter. More times
Okay.
than not.
I
I have to disagree because
take it.
I have serviced my snow blower. It is running flawlessly, which means that we will not get any snow for the rest of the season.
That's a good sign. We're not gonna get anything else, David. Thank you for your prediction.
Yes.
All right. What do you think, Dale? Shall I turn it over to you or?
I guess so.
Um,
I'm really disappointed. We only have this little, I mean, these are wonderful guests that we have, but we
There'll be
deserve,
more.
Liana deserves many, 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 many more.
This is
That's true.
Quality.
But it's a small, intimate crowd, so
Right.
we
And
can
the
go with
recording,
that.
the recording will be watched by thousands, probably.
And it is
You can put it-
recording.
You can put it on your Instagram, Liana, and you'll get
Okay.
lots of viewers. She has 600,000
Mhm.
followers.
Oh, there you go.
How about that?
Um,
Okay.
They're still coming in. People are still coming in. So I will just say welcome back to At Nourish. And I will turn it and publicly, and they will watch the recording. Thank the Finks, Harriet and Michael Fink, not only for being really wonderful people, but for introducing us to their daughter, Liana. And with that, Dale, to you.
Okay, well, we are so honored to have you, Liana. I'm going to tell everyone just a little about your background. Liana is a graphic novelist and a regular contributor to The New Yorker. She grew up in Chester, New York, and her parents are, as you heard, our own congregants, Harriet and Michael Fink. She studied fine art and graphic design in the Cooper Union in New York City. She's a recipient of a Fulbright Fellowship, a New York Foundation for the Arts Fellowship, and a 6 Points Fellowship for Emerging Jewish Artists. She has had artist residencies with MacDowell, Yaddo, and Headland Center for the Arts. Let There Be Light is her 4th book. The book also recently won the Edward Louis Wallant Award, presented to a Jewish writer, preferably unrecognized, but of course, Liana is very recognized, whose published work of fiction is deemed to have significance to American Jewish history and culture. So congratulations for that. You can find her on Instagram at Liana Fink, no space, where she currently has over 600,000 followers. So get on the team, guys. Publishers Weekly reviewed Let There Be Light with these words: an irreverent yet profound retelling of the book of Genesis. Throughout, God and readers are reminded that light can't exist without darkness or creation without destruction. Fink's exploration offers much light in both senses: lightness in terms of levity and lightness in terms of illumination. For me, it's been really fascinating to prepare for this interview because I realized I know practically nothing about cartooning or the world of cartooning. I know that it must vary. Cartooning varies depending on the cartoonist, but in your hands, Liana, a cartoonist is a creator, a writer, as well as an artist who wrestles with questions like truth, the meaning of life, justice, sexism, and that timeless question, do I really need to go to every gathering my aunt and uncle host? Did I mention that it's also fun? Her cartooning is incredibly fun. So let's hold on to that idea of cartoonist as creator, because we're going to come back to that when we get to our discussion of Liana's book, Let There Be Light, the real story of her creation. In it, Liana has reimagined the book of Genesis through the eyes of a female God who is, like Liana, a creator, who I take it struggles sometimes with self-doubt and fears on her way to achieving her artistic vision. The God of the Torah is also a creator, of course, but a very different one from Liana and from her God. I wanted to spend a few minutes learning, Liana, how you came to cartooning. How did you discover that you were and are a cartoonist? When did this happen? And while you're talking, I'm going to ask Shirley to post your first published cartoon, headlined Slinkies Climbing Upstairs to Spawn.
Thank you.
You can start talking.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for having me. Dale, thank you so much for this really good, thoughtful interview. Thank you. I've been drawing since I was a little kid. My mom is an artist and she drew with me since I was a baby. And I also she kind of kept me from art classes because she was a real believer in art coming from inside of you. So it wasn't until I started applying for colleges that I realized there was a difference between cartooning and fine art. And at that point I thought oh, of course I'm a fine artist because I'm important, but I was wrong. I was a cartoonist, but it took me a little while to realize that, but I had been since I was a little kid. I always made drawings that I wanted to tell stories and make people laugh with them.
And can you tell us when you first drew a cartoon and realized it was a cartoon?
I'm not sure. I always drew characters. I cared a lot about their facial expressions and things. I guess the first time I drew a cartoon wanting it to be a cartoon was probably in high school. I made some friends who were into underground cartooning, and I also fell in love with the New Yorker cartoonists, especially Roz Chast and Saul Steinberg. And being a teenager, I wanted to imitate the artists I liked. So probably when I was around 15 or so, I started trying to draw cartoons.
And what does it take? Like this is so, I mean, it's so funny and so just offbeat. How I'm talking about the Slinkies. How did that come to you?
Thank you. I was, at the time, I'd been submitting cartoons to the New Yorker for a few months. And you submit 10 every week. And this one was changed by the editor, which was very rare. The editor, who is Bob Mankoff, didn't usually request anything. And this one was, I had drawn a parent saying to a kid of a Slinky climbing up the stairs, oh, it's going upstairs to spawn and die, which is what salmon, this wasn't in the caption, but that's what salmon do. They go upstream. I hadn't realized it, but I probably had subconsciously realized that there was, I don't remember it. I know it was by Drew Dernovich, but it was a salmon joke, a salmon swimming upstream joke, like a little bit before then. So it's not that original, honestly. Bob Mankoff did not like the dynamic of the parent and the kid, and he said you could make this simpler by just having the Slinkies. And because he corrected it, I had a hint that he might actually buy it for the magazine, and I was very excited. So I did that.
That's fantastic. I just wanted to insert that there's a wonderful documentary about New Yorker cartoonists on HBO, and I watched it when it came out, which I think was it 7 years ago, Liana?
I think it was around 2015.
Okay, so it was 8 years ago. I remember watching it and loving it. And I remember there was this, it had all these different cartoonists featured in it. And there was this very, very young woman who was, submitting cartoons in the course of the documentary. And she kept trying, and he kept saying, keep trying. These aren't it yet, but keep going. And I was so invested. I was wondering what was going to come of her and her cartoons. And at the very end, or near the end, he actually picks one and publishes it, I guess. And, I've always had that young woman in my mind. And as I was preparing for this, I thought, wait a minute, was that Liana Fink? And I went back and looked up just the little blurbs and trailers of the cartoon, and it was. So I've actually been following you and wondering what became of. I didn't remember that the name was Liana Fink. So I've seen your cartoons in the New Yorker, but I didn't put it together until now. So that's very exciting.
That makes me so happy. The movie is called Very Semi-Serious. If anyone wants to see it, it's directed by Leah Walchuk and Davina Pardo. And they're kind of my guardian angels. They're the reason I had the courage to keep submitting, because the first day that I submitted seriously to the New Yorker, they were filming. I didn't know they would be, but there was this huge crowd and it was really welcoming, which it usually wasn't in those days. It was usually a very small group of really seasoned cartoonists, and a newcomer would feel really nervous and not like they were supposed to be there. But this time I felt very welcome, and Bob Mankoff, the editor, who's a real performer, was really happy to have this like clueless newcomer to like ham it up, like looking at her cartoons. So I felt very paid attention to by him. And I think he paid extra attention to my cartoons because he wanted it to be a really good film moment. And I think I'm a performer too. So it was good. I think he and I are both awkward, and we had a really good film relationship, and it translated into a good working relationship eventually.
That's a really great story. Well, anyway, I wanted, right before we get to the book, I wanted to show one other cartoon that Shirley is going to show. Oh my gosh, your father just came on.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Here.
That's great. And so,
Give me a second.
okay, here's another cartoon that came out. This came out before the book in the New Yorker, or right around the same?
No, this one was self-published. Yeah,
it was, but I saw it in the New Yorker, I think. No,
maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure. It wasn't in the print magazine. It might have been on their Instagram.
Oh, okay. I guess maybe I got it online or something.
Yeah, it
But anyway,
probably was.
Shirley, can you put up baby comment? Okay, I love this so much.
Thank you.
This is, as you can see, a couple who are expecting a baby, and little do they know, this baby is going to come into their lives like a flaring comet and blow them up or something. And was this right before your own child was born?
Yeah, I was documenting my pregnancy. Instagram's been an important part of my work it's not so much right now, but it has been for the past many years, where I'll just kind of document what's going on in my life, and these really simple drawings there. I don't feel like I reveal so much of my personal life while being able to also reveal exactly what I'm feeling, and it's been therapeutic and fun.
But you said this was right before when you were pregnant, but before.
Yeah.
Okay. And I love that. And can you tell us how you thought of that image of the baby hurtling toward the unsuspecting parents in a comet?
No, I don't know how I thought of it.
Okay, it just happened.
And this
kind of like children.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I think
like-
it actually depicts how we all feel that moment before, when we don't know what's going to hit us. It's
Yeah.
the comet, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I guess none of us would have ever been able to come up with that image, I think.
I don't know. Like, I think one thing I love about being able to post on Instagram, and there's like no overhead. Obviously, no one has to pay to produce it or to look at it. And it doesn't go through editors or anything. I got to post like 10 things every day, and then maybe one of them would be good. Like, I really liked that way of working.
You know, I was thinking, since the other one was your first cartoon published in the New Yorker, and this is a much more recent one, can you see anything in the two of them that could explain to us how you've evolved as a cartoonist?
Oh yeah, totally. The Slinkies are drawn. It's clear that I was trying very hard to draw like a professional, and I was really uncomfortable trying to do that. I love to draw, and I doodled very happily and very confidently, but it was a real evolution for me to learn how to draw for public. And also for like scanning something in and getting it into a state where it could be reproduced in a confident way. So the Slinkies was drawn with like a kind of professional brush and ink, and I didn't use them very happily. And then this is a letterpress print, but the original was drawn with a really simple gel pen, just like, and kind of an office pen on printer paper. And I've started to draw very small, not for my New Yorker cartoons, but for the Instagram cartoons. I find that drawing very, very tiny is a way to fake confidence of a drawing. It looks like you're drawing big with a big bold line. You're actually drawing like that big.
That's great. And you were saying that when you first started to draw, you thought you'd be a fine artist, and then you decided to be a cartoonist. So did you used to like do very representational art, and then you became more sketching almost? I don't know how you would describe it. I'm not an artist, but these are just such simple lines as opposed to a full portrait.
I've always drawn kind of intuitively and rarely representationally. I started trying to draw representationally when I was trying to get into art school, when I realized that that's what you're supposed to do as a fine artist. But I probably did that from the age of 16 until the age of 22 or so, and then I stopped again. But it has taken me a long time to learn how to draw the way I draw when nobody's looking, and these simple drawings are kind of my way of acting. I don't know, acting like I have no self-consciousness.
And so in other words, you're trying to draw what you really want to draw, not what someone else wants you to draw. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, I'm trying to draw the way I would doodle if it was just in the margins of a letter or something that no one was going to see.
You know, this is a kind of petty little question, but I noticed on the Slinkies, you signed your name Liana Fink, and on this one you signed your name L Fink.
Yeah.
So that's you. Why did you change your byline? I'm just wondering.
I
Or your
started,
signature, I guess.
I signed my first name for the New Yorker because there were really very few women cartoonists when I started, and I wanted people reading the New Yorker to know that I was a woman, especially if they were someone who wanted to one day make cartoons, just to know that they could do it. And now there are a ton of women cartoonists at the New Yorker, and I don't feel like I need to do that anymore. I feel like people don't need to, like, it doesn't matter. I don't need to make that point anymore, which is lovely.
That's great.
And it's
well,
easier,
this is
like, I'm just lazy.
Well, this is a great transition to the book, Let There Be Light, because of course, this is a female God. And there hasn't been a female God before, well, certainly not in the Torah. So I wanted to ask, how did this book come to be born? And did birthing it or begetting it in the Torah language blow up your world like a comet?
I wish it did. The publishing industry doesn't usually make your world blow up after you publish a book, unless it's a very, very rare luck. But
No, what I meant was just the whole process of writing and struggling with what
yes,
you wanted to say.
no, it did. It did. I invented the character a long time ago for a piece in the Forward newspaper, actually, around, I want to say, like, also 2015 is a good year for me. I was doing a regular page for the Forward, and this was kind of the most fun and easiest piece I've ever done. Maybe it was really nice to get to tell a story and not have to do the heavy lifting of inventing it. I just thought, oh, I don't know where the idea came from, but I wanted to rewrite a little bit of the book of Genesis with this female God character. And it was really fun. I added little really fun flourishes, like Abraham was very tiny, and I was very interested in her relationship with this tiny man. And she was like this big child holding this little doll. And I put that little excerpt into my next graphic novel, which is called Passing for Human, and which is a kind of fragmented book about being a female artist. And the fragments are kind of tied together with this interstitial matter, which is excerpts from an imaginary Torah with a female God who's like the ultimate female artist role model.
Wow. And how, so that was, you said 2015 that you, and were you working on it pretty steadily from then on, just like putting the pieces of the book together?
That was a different book, and that book, by the way, I think you're right. I think the movie did come out in 2016. But that was a different book, and that one came out in 2018, I think. And after it came out, I had another book which came out in 2019. And as I was finishing that, my editor came to me with the idea of doing the book of Genesis with this God character who had been in my memoir.
I see. Well, why don't we start? Shirley, would you put up the first few pages of Let There Be Light, and Liana, would you read them as people look at the pictures?
Yeah, thank you.
Here's the first.
Yes, this is a chapter page first. First, she created the heavens and the earth. It was all basically a mess at this point. with darkness floating on the face of the depths. That was the beginning of disappointment. She lay there, unable to move, wondering if this was all she was capable of. Time or something passed. Finally, she opened her mouth and said, "Let there be light." And there was light. "I'll call this one day," she says, "and this one I'll call night." And the first day was spent and gone forever. She was despondent, but only for a little. The next day, she drew a horizon between the waters below and the waters above. The former she called earth, the latter sky. Thus the second day was used up too. On the third day, what have we here? I'll call it land. Next, she invented the color green. She went wild with it. And so the third day vanished too. But the days kept coming. That's it.
Well, and the chapter goes on and on and on quite a bit, and more chapters go on. And then we come to Noah. Oh, wait, before we do that, I wanted to ask, when in the Garden of Eden, when God creates the dark figure and the light figure, right? So Adam, the man, is the light figure, and Lilith is the dark figure. And in your telling, Lilith is, well, God ends up striking Lilith and transforming her into the snake, who then leads Adam and Eve to the tree of knowledge and the apple. And I was so interested in your decision to make Lilith the force of darkness in the Torah, and wanted to ask about that.
Yeah, Lilith comes from Midrash, which is there to explain why the creation of Adam and Eve story happens twice in the Torah. The first time God creates two figures out of clay, and then the story just stops short and starts again, and God creates Adam, and Adam is lonely, so God takes out Adam's rib and creates Eve from the rib. And there are folk tales made to explain the discrepancy by saying that Adam actually had two wives, and his original wife was rebellious and got banished, and her name was Lilith. And she's this, like, it's one of the few times I put Midrash into this book that wasn't just made up by me. She's this like fascinating character and really ambiguous. Like, I don't know. I liked her as kind of a foil for God. She's a really powerful female-ish creature, and I wanted God to not be the only really powerful character in the book, and I wanted another one who's not a patriarch.
Right.
And it has, I think I've seen art with Lilith drawn as a snake. It's like, I think it's been done, I think, by Christians.
Ah, okay. Well, I thought that was a really interesting device, because you have these two female forces, one destructive, one creative. Well, also the creator is a little destructive too sometimes.
Yeah, and Lilith's a little creative. I think of God as kind of a pure soul, kind of childlike, and Lilith is kind of more savvy and more aware of unfairness in the world, and she's just always campaigning for truth, and she's not so likable because of that, and God doesn't like her because God hasn't learned how to take hard truths yet, but their relationship evolves over the course of the book.
Yes.
We need to read the whole book.
Yeah, everybody has to read the book. It's so,
Yeah.
so amazing. So anyway, I thought maybe now we also have some pages from the chapter on Noah, and I thought we could put those up. Shirley's going to put those up, and Liana's going to read from them.
Hang on. Oh, no, I think I just lost Noah. Say
Yeah.
something, I find Noah. There was a comment, by the way, from the rabbi about Bintel a brief.
Yes, that's another book by Liana.
Yeah, why don't you talk about that while I find Noah?
Okay.
Shirley, do you want
Also-
me to resend it to you?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Thank
It's
you.
okay.
Bintel Brief was my first graphic novel. I had a really lovely grant called the 6 Points Fellowship to work on it. So it started as a grant proposal, which is there are different ways to start a book. One is to know exactly what you're doing beforehand. And Bintel Brief might be the only time I've ever made a book in that way. It is an adaptation of a bunch of letters that were written to an advice column called a Bintel Brief that was hugely popular and hugely important and published in the Forward newspaper from the time the Forward started being published in 1906. I hope I'm getting the dates right today. And was very popular until Yiddish stopped being such a widespread language in the US in maybe the 40s or 50s. Again, not positive I'm getting the dates right. And these letters were really heartbreaking and also really fun. They were by people who were brand new in the US, like dealing with these intense problems and like working in sweatshops, like had really difficult lives, but were also sometimes really optimistic about their brand new life and their new feeling of freedom and possibility. And it was really fun to work on.
And thank you for that intermission. I have Noah whenever you're ready.
Ready.
All right.
Am I reading a little bit of Noah?
Yes, you're just
Okay.
reading 10 pages of Noah.
Okay, Noah. You want to blow it up a little bit, or else I can open it over here.
Well, let me see if I can get this bigger. I should be able to.
I can also read it from.
I got it.
Perfect. Thank you. Noah.
Is that big enough?
That's great. Yeah. When God looked down from her heavenly haunts, she saw the wickedness of man, that everything he thought, I wonder if there's a kegger I can crash tonight, and everything he felt, I'm going to sleep with my neighbor's wife. Murder, 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 murder was downright evil. It grieved her. And she's thinking, why can't I sleep? Oh yes, men. And that's kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke about mankind, because humans are called men in the Torah, but God is also kind of like a not very evolved woman who says things like men, like me. She knew she would not be able to sleep until she destroyed them being men. There's a certain relief that comes with making a decision, even a horrific one. There was, however, one man of whom God was very fond. His name was Noah. And she's always hiding her face from humans because in the Torah, we don't see God's face. So she's hiding behind the moon and she says, hi, I am the Lord your God. And he looks kind of nonplussed.
And also there's an asterisk there.
Yeah, the asterisk says Emunah is always a good disguise if you're 10 million feet tall. I've made a decision. I am going to destroy the world, and I can't imagine a world without you in it. And he's looking kind of like surprised by the fact that he's clearly very, very important, but not necessarily happy to have discovered that. He's just confused. She told him to build an ark, and she says, make it about yay big, holding her arms out. When it's finished, I want you to round up 2 of every kind of animal and bring them inside. Just hurry, the floods are coming. And you see what the floods are going to be. This is the story of God's first love. God loved Noah, and then she gently places him back on earth as the rains are starting. She loved him at a time when she hated everything else, including herself. She didn't want to destroy the world. She rumbles. She simply couldn't help herself. But by the time the rains came, and the rains are her tears, Noah, his family, and the animals were all safe on board the ark. She spews. Our heroine cried for 40 days and 40 nights. God's love of her creations had eroded imperceptibly over time. There had been the episode with the tree of knowledge and the terrible murder of Abel by Cain, but it wasn't until now that the misery poured out of her in all its brutal force. In other ways, though, she was profoundly happy. The way she felt about Noah, it was a new way to feel. As for Noah, and you're getting like strobe lights of his kind of cramped and smelly life and terrifying life on board the ark, who knows if he felt it too? He must have felt something, though, and his beard grows.
I think this is where we were going to stop, right?
Mhm.
Isn't that page 10 or more?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. And then, so she goes through the whole story of Noah, and then Shirley, can you just zip to the last page of Noah?
Yeah.
And let Ilana read
I
that.
love this story. Whoops.
It's so great.
Thank you so much.
It's really
Anyway.
far. Keep going, keep going.
Yeah,
See,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
the
yeah,
rainbow. We're getting there.
Right. This is a teaser for all of you to go find the book.
Yeah, and you can get it at Watch on Booksellers. Oh, there, I think
Oh,
that's
I'm
the last
glad.
page. Yeah.
This is it.
So yeah, he dies. Spoiler.
Is that it?
That's the
After
last.
You want to finish the story, Liana?
Yeah, Noah lives till he's, I think, 950 years old, and then he dies, and God's kind of bemused. She still doesn't understand why she chose this guy. He was pretty average, but she did, and she can't remember why, but she did.
Yeah, and will you just read the last few frames where God is sitting on the cloud?
God still thinks of him now and then. What is it that made her choose him of all people? To this day, she can't be sure.
So Noah must have really fascinated you. Why was he so interesting to you? I mean, he's obviously interesting to scholars.
Yeah,
Has been.
I didn't love all the patriarchs equally. I really struggled with Abraham just because, well, mostly because God wasn't in that story so much anymore, but she is in the Noah story. And I think that's probably why I love the Noah story. Also, I just love these really ancient, I mean, I love all the stories or not all, I love a lot of the stories in Genesis, but the ones that were easiest to draw were the really ancient ones that are just kind of really stare and say these bizarre things without any explanation. Like Noah starts with it says, oh, humans were mating with angels, and then there were giants, and God was mad and not happy. And it's like, oh, that's so fun to draw. So yeah, I loved the story of Noah. I loved that he doesn't have much of a personality, and I get to project so much onto him and also focus mostly on God, who is the character that I really care about.
I think it's so interesting that God is a creator and you are a creator. This is something I was just saying at the beginning. And there's something of an artist about God. I mean, she loved the color green and she was drawing lines and everything.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering how you see God as an artist.
I wonder if God is, I think I wonder if the traditional Old Testament God is an artist more than anything else. I think he's like half artist and half dictator, but my God is more so artist and a bit mother. Yeah, I've always made art, and in my late 20s, I realized that I had very few female role models, and I hadn't like intentionally sought out female role models. I just kind of took what the culture gave me, and I realized it was really messing me up, that I was like trying to be macho and I was trying to be like Philip Guston or something, and that's why, or James Joyce, and I just couldn't make work like with the idea that an artist is supposed to be so big. And I don't know, it coincided with a feminist awakening that I had, and I decided I was angry and I was full of energy, and I decided to invent this kind of imaginary, like all-encompassing female role model.
So Dale, this is a good time to let Leanna take a breath and see if there's some questions, because we're gonna.
I just ask her to read. I mean, I wanted to just quickly then run to the end, because later, we get to the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Abraham is, well, when God calls out to Abraham, she says, "Go to the place that I will show you, and I will make of you a great artist, and everyone will know your name." So there's another creator, right? And he becomes a great artist, but he starts off as a very struggling artist. And the Garden of Eden has become a very poorly maintained New York City park. He lives in Manhattan, by the way. Abraham does. And toward the end, Lilith reappears, and there's a point where Abraham's soul leaves him because he's so crushed by God's misunderstanding of him and his misunderstanding of God. And his soul leaves him, and his soul takes Abraham to see God, because God comes to Central Park, the former Garden of Eden. And if you know when she's coming, you can see her. And suddenly Abraham discovers that God is a woman, and all of these other men in the Torah had thought he was a man. In fact, we're calling her he. And now Abraham finds out that she is a woman. And at the end, after we get to Jacob and Joseph and his father and brothers are all reunited, Jacob says that God must be looking down on them and smiling. And God isn't smiling. She's not smiling. And I wondered why, because that's kind of the end of the book. Except, well, there's actually one other thing about Lilith. Lilith comes back.
Yeah, I can't remember why God isn't smiling. I remember feeling very strongly that she mustn't be smiling, but I can't remember why. But I think it must have to do, the whole book is about God's like just not quite understanding and not quite being understood by these men she's so wild about, these like patriarchs she created and pursues and promises things to, and they think she's this powerful father figure. She's not. She thinks they're kind of her boyfriends or something, and they're not interested in her like that. And it's just like they keep doing things that she thinks they're telling them to do and dedicating their lives to her, and that's not really what she's asking. And with Abraham was the hardest character for me to access, and I finally figured out the way that I could relate to him, which was by turning him into a very reverent parody of the quote genius artist figure, like a Jackson Pollock kind of figure who's just completely single-minded in the belief that he is a great artist, and he sacrifices everything in his life to this belief, including his relationships. And he thinks so I substituted the idea of a promised land for the idea of being a great artist. And God does tell him he's going to be great, but I think she's just besotted with him and also telling him nice things because she wants him to really see her and understand her. And it's just kind of a misunderstanding the way there often are between people who love each other in different ways.
So I just wanted Liana to, so anyway, Lilith comes back at the end and I won't spoil it, but Lilith was the one who showed Abraham's soul.
Yeah.
Took the soul to God.
Yeah,
And
that was maybe the wackiest part of the book where I really let my imagination run away with me. So Abraham kind of falls on the floor unconscious when God tells him that these paintings he's been laboring over for 50 years and sacrificed his entire life to are not really good. And they're not. So he just falls down unconscious, and then his soul goes off and is sitting despondently on a curb and is found by Lilith, who leads the soul to I think Gramercy Park, which is a gated park that you can't get into unless you live around it. That I always kind of covet. I love gardens that I'm not allowed into in the city. They're so enticing because there's so little green around here, and the green that there is just so gorgeous and so well maintained. So the soul gets to kind of access Gramercy Park because it doesn't have a body, and it turns out that that's the Garden of Eden. I also substituted New York with the Promised Land, so it's art and it's New York, which were my promised lands, and it sees God, who's just this enormous little girl who sits in the park playing with little rocks and pieces of dirt and making things for herself.
Right. So I wondered if, before we take questions, if you could read from you have an afterword or author's note, sorry. And I loved what you said. You started off by saying that the book was an effort to draw out the character of God, quote, as I saw her when I was young. Giving God a new gender, my own, was my first step toward reclaiming this work of literature for myself. And then you said what your real aim was in the very last paragraph. Do you have that where you could read it, Liana?
Let me try to find a PDF of it on my computer.
If you could just start with, but my real aim in making this book is to demonstrate that each of us is allowed to create God.
I hope I have it in here. 1 second.
If not, I can read it, although I wish you would read it.
I can go and get the book. I'll be right back.
Okay.
So while we're waiting, if any of you have questions that you want to put in chat, we'll line them up for Liana after she reads her closing paragraph.
Hey, I'm back.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Okay. I hope the God I've created in this book is relatable in some ways to some people, or that she's at least a fun character to read about. But my real aim in making this book is to demonstrate that each of us is allowed to create God or gods in our own image, and that we must reshape the larger stories that are handed down to us. Family stories, religious and cultural stories, our individual and collective pasts, and tell them in a way that feels honest to us. Stories need to be told and retold in different voices. That is how they breathe.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful ending. And I
Thank you.
turn it over to questions.
We've got one here. Dale, did you write Richard's in there or?
No, Richard wrote to me and I just forwarded it to you.
Okay, so where are you, Richard? Since we're so small, do you want to just speak your question rather than have me read it? Or I can do it.
Sure, I'll I'll do it. All right. So
There you are.
there we go. So I actually had seen your work a while ago and really loved it. And my 16-year-old who's upstairs doing homework loved it as well. But I'm curious if you were influenced at all by the very, very popular TV format that ostensibly is graphic novels, right? So if you look at Simpsons or Bob's Burgers or any of the just brilliant TV, it seems to allow the artists a lot of freedom. And my children tell me allow a lot more theology in those TV formats. And I'm curious if you were influenced by that kind of form of art, or if you found the graphic novel really freeing to tell the stories with this perspective.
Oh, that's really interesting. I think everyone's influenced by TV. It's like the main, maybe the main format of our times. I don't watch much TV these days, but I used to really love it. And when I was starting to make graphic novels, I wanted to be a movie maker for a minute, and I couldn't fathom like all the money and collaboration that would take. And I'm not someone who's good at pulling things like that together. So that's why I started making graphic novels. And it didn't hurt that I loved to draw and to tell stories. It felt like a really good format for me to work in, but it wasn't it didn't come naturally. It was like, oh, I like to do this. I like to do this. This is impossible. So this is probably the right format for me. But yeah, I'm influenced by TV, I'm sure.
Interesting connection.
Yeah, I want to hear more about the theology.
Well, as an aside, the kids nowadays, and Reddit's a great place to see this, all of them have developed great theology around all the television shows. Always Sunny in Philadelphia, for example, is static immorality. And a lot of that is like very philosophical. I go on all night about that, but it's really interesting. I'm happy to send it to Dale and she can send it to you. It's really interesting what they've done, a little bit like you, in that they've changed what the original artist did to make it more meaningful.
So cool. That's so cool.
You know, I saw in your bio, I mean, not in your bio, in your afterword, that you went to Jewish day school and that was your education.
Mm-hmm.
And you had said that you always struggled a little bit with whether your soul was religious or not. And I wondered if the book was kind of just an opportunity to explore something that you've been wrestling with all your life.
Yeah, I think I have two things standing in the way of me being what I think of as a good Jew. One is being a woman. It's a patriarchal religion. It just is. And the other is being shy. Like, I'm not much of a community person. And the way I see Judaism, it has a huge amount to do with people, but what I do love is the text. So this was kind of my way of showing myself that even if I'm not what I think of as a good Jew, I'm a Jew and I care a lot about it. And this is where I come from. And I want to continue to think about it in whatever way I can. And this is my way.
Well, I'm glad you shared it with us.
Thank you. This was really lovely. Thanks for your questions. I had a really good time.
We did too. Does anyone else have questions? Oh. Sarita, you're muted.
Sorry, I just got back from Spain. I'm really falling asleep here, but I had to stay up and see you. I've been up for probably like 18 hours. At any rate, I was wondering whether when you wrote the book, it was you thinking back to what you had studied when you were in Hebrew school, or whether you went back and sort of reread, like, or looked at the Torah and the Chumash, and actually based it on a current textual reading. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, well, I did reread the Torah like a lot as I was working on this book. I read it in Hebrew with some assists from English on the side, and like a side-by-side Hebrew English. And I also listened on audiobook to Robert Alter's translation, which I loved, partly because it was an incredible reader on audio. It was just like lovely story time. And I think I read maybe one other translation, I can't remember. But I also tried to preserve the feeling that I had when I read it as a kind of daydreamy student in Hebrew day school, where like there are a lot of kind of intentional like misinterpretations of the text in this book, kind of like naive and funny misinterpretations. Also, like I was doing honor to the text by reading it very literally in a lot of places and not making it make more sense than it does.
Well, we certainly appreciate your rewriting of it. I'm wondering if we could use that for reading some parshas of the Torah. Maybe we can use it with the kids. There. That's really great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Liana. Thank you, Dale, for doing all the research you did and guiding us through this discussion. So thanks to both of you. Before we close, I see Rabbi Julie's on. Rabbi Julie, are you there? Can you hear me? I thought we might make a pitch for Sunday, because Sunday we have a program Sunday afternoon at Shomrei with David Haltfinger, and it's a live program, but I don't have the papers in front of me, so I don't know what time it is.
Oh, hold on, I can get it.
But it's live, not Zoom.
It's at noon. It's at 12 o'clock.
Okay.
At Shomrei.
At Shomrei. Join us at Shomrei on Sunday to have a conversation about Israel. And so
It will also be live streamed and recorded for anyone who's not able to attend.
I thought
person.
we weren't streaming it. I thought we were just recording it, and that we were asking.
I got the email. I think the email did say live stream and recorded.
Maybe it's, I don't know. Whatever, it's Sunday at noon. The hope was to get some people together in person on Sunday in the social hall.
Yeah, I
So,
think Rabbi Julie said she didn't want to Zoom it initially because it was so important to be together in person to have this conversation. So
She said that Saturday at services.
Right. So I'm hoping we can do that.
Right.
Anyway.
So that's what's coming up on Sunday at noon. And thank you all for being here. And thank you to Liana and her parents.
And thank you to Richard and Harriet for having her.
Michael.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Richard Skeen's name here. Michael. Sorry.
We hope it's Michael.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.